Hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about consequences. Now before we jump into it, of course there are just consequences when we get what we deserve, and there are unjust consequences when we don't get what we deserve. We're going to talk about specifically today just consequences, getting what we deserve. I'm sure you've heard by now that Congressional Representative Marjorie Greene has been removed from her committee responsibilities by Congress. They voted last night and they removed her from it. This is based on her words and her actions over the last couple of years. Even before she was a member of Congress, they deemed it that this was representation that she was unfit. She was just unfit to carry out those duties because of the veiled threats, because of the inflammatory and the incendiary things that she was saying. This was her punishment. Now, the Republicans quickly said that this is just the Democrats politicizing the issue. And in all fairness, that could be exactly what this is, that the Democrats are seizing this moment and they're making a political issue out of it. I'm not going to diminish that. I'm not even going to have that argument. I'm going to say that is an absolute possibility. But that doesn't change the fact that this is a consequence for the actions and the words she said over the last few years. This is the consequence that she's facing because of all the things that she did in order to boost herself up, to raise herself up so that she could be elected. The thing is, there are consequences to every action. To every word we speak, there are consequences. Every behavior, every decision, we will face consequences. Sometimes those consequences are good consequences. We call them rewards. Sometimes those consequences are bad consequences. We call them punishment, correction, reward, consequences. You get the idea. In this case, Representative Greene is experiencing negative consequences, punishment, correction. But for you and I, it's the same. If we do things that cause others harm, we should expect a consequence. If we do things that cause other people grief, there are consequences. If we do things that cause other people to suffer, there are consequences that we will have to face. And apologies, as great as apologies are, an apology is not about avoiding a consequence. An apology is about the beginning of the work to restore a relationship. It's the beginning of the work to restore trust. It's the beginning of healing. But an apology is not about avoiding the repercussions of what we've done. We have to live this life with an understanding that we live in a world of other people, and that our actions and our words, while it may get us what we want in the moment, they may come back to haunt us in the future. They may come back to cause us grief and pain in the future. They may cause people in the here and now and going forward suffering. In our decisions, we need to be wise. We need to recognize the potential cost. Now, there's a great story that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. It comes in it's in the 4th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. It's the story of Jesus being tempted in the wilderness. And the second temptation, it says that the tempter takes Jesus to Jerusalem and sets him on top of the highest point in the temple and says, "Now throw yourself off, for it is written that God will save you, and it won't even feel like you stubbed your toe." And Jesus says, no, I'm not doing that. No way. Because it's also written, do not test God. And of course, Jesus doesn't throw himself off the roof. I see that message that Jesus is actually conveying wisdom. He's telling us to think about our decisions. See, him throwing himself off that roof, there was not going to be a positive consequence for that. No good was going to come out of that moment. Zero good was going to come out of that moment. All that moment was going to do if he had thrown himself off the roof, it was going to damage or it was going to destroy his ministry. You see, if Jesus had thrown himself off that roof and an angel of God had swooped down and caught him and restored him and put him back on the roof, and everybody around there had seen it, that would have damaged the mission. That would have damaged the message. You see, one of the things that Jesus actually needed in the Gospels was an antagonist. And the antagonist in the Gospels was not Satan or the devil. The antagonist were the religious. The antagonist was the Pharisees and the Sadducees. It was the religious authority, the religious leaders of the Jewish people. And Jesus needed them to play off of. He needed them so that he could show the world how different his ideas were. But if they had seen an angel swoop down and pick him up, there's no play. They would immediately just fall down at his feet. They'd immediately recognize him as the Son of God, in which case there's no crucifixion, there's no resurrection. Ultimately, there's no ascension as we know it, which means there's no church. We're not here. The mission failed. Of course, the other side of it is, if Jesus had thrown himself off the roof and God doesn't save him, well, he face plants on the sidewalk. And if the fall doesn't kill him, a huge question arises. Why didn't God save you? If you're the Son of God, why didn't God save you when you did that? Where was God in this? And all of a sudden, there's so much doubt in his ministry before it even begins. He's just some crazy guy that throws himself off buildings. The mission never gets off the ground. No pun intended. We can learn from Jesus' example in this. We can learn from this story. We can learn from what's going on with Representative Greene. We need to walk in this world in such ways that we are taking others into consideration. That we are weighing the value and the cost of our actions, of our behaviors, of our words. We're asking ourselves, do these words matter to the people around me in that I'm building them up, I'm encouraging them, I'm empowering them, I'm helping them? Are these words edifying to my neighbors and to my family? Are these words beneficial? Are these actions and words beneficial to the community around me? Are my actions and words good for me but harming others, or are they good for all? We need to choose wisely. If we want to live in this world in peace, we need to choose wisely. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you, and may you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that as you and I walk forward, we are wise. That we choose our behaviors and our words carefully, so that we may live in peace with everyone around us. Amen.